Okay, in this video we're going to be checking out the Foxeer Falkor Mini camera. It's the mini version of the Falkor camera that I reviewed a few weeks back, and essentially pretty much the same as far as I can tell. I know that they did a little bit of a firmware tweak between the pre-production and the production version, and I think that has the same tweak. Basically the camera board and the sensor are the same as before. They just put this into a mini-sized case here. The 22mm width form factor. Still got the M12 lens. There's two versions that you can get. The white one here has a 2.5mm lens, so fairly narrow field of view, and the red one here is a 1.8, I believe, 1.8mm lens. So the lenses look similar, but the field of view is much wider on the 1.8 versus the 2.5. So if you're looking to get this for any type of FPV on a quadcopter, I would recommend getting the 1.8. The 2.5 is fairly narrow, and I don't think you're going to like that. This size, or this field of view for a quadcopter, is probably going to be better for an airplane. But that's really only the difference between the two. The sensor is the same on obviously both versions here, and also on the full-size version. 1200 TV line CMOS sensor, is NTSC PAL switchable, and 4.3 and 16.9 switchable. The sensor on here is a native 4.3 sensor, so when you go to 16.9 it actually crops it down to, I think it crops the top and bottom to get you the 16.9 aspect ratio, but then also cuts down your field of view going from 4.3 to 16.9. So this camera has pretty similar features to the Predator V3 with all the NTSC PAL switching and aspect ratio switching, but they still have the old connector here, but I think this is the old 5-pin connector. Instead of on the Predator V3 they split it up into a 4-pin and a 2-pin for the OSD cable. So perhaps they'll switch this again for the micro version of this, which will be coming out in probably about 2-3 weeks. I hear they're still working on the case and the new lens for this. Now this is a 1200 TV line CMOS sensor, so it's basically the same TV lines as the Monster Pro, I believe, but that one is a 16.9 native sensor versus this is a 4.3 native sensor, and the light handling and the color reproduction is quite a bit different on the Falkor versus the Micro Pro. So if you guys want to check out that camera and see the difference, to put a card in the corner to my previous FPV camera roundup, you can see all the other CMOS and SCCD cameras that I've reviewed in the past, and compare this image quality to that one. You guys can see the difference. This image quality here kind of reminds me somewhat of similar to the Caddx SDR2, and maybe a little bit of the Micro Monster in there in terms of the color reproduction. But I think the wide dynamic range in this one is actually pretty good. So it kind of reminds me of a mix of the SDR2 and the Predator in terms of the wide dynamic range. So anyway, you guys can look at the flight footage at the end and make your own opinions about that, because there's so many cameras out there, and the way they handle the image reproduction is really different. So opinions will vary quite a bit. Anyway, just to quickly go over the rest of the stuff you get with the camera. Obviously, you get your standard mount here. You get a adapter to convert to a full-size camera if your frame only takes full-size cameras, and then you have your mounting screws, your wiring loom, and your OSD controller. This is what the wiring loom looks like. Just basically, the connector goes to the camera. You have a little dongle for your OSD joystick connector, and this under here, usually just cut this off and solder it to your flight controller, or this under here. I think this connector goes to, I think, the Clear TX. It's actually made for the Foxeer Clear TX, but if you don't have that, then obviously you'll have to cut this off and do soldering. And then it does have on-screen display for voltage sensing. So you have a wire there. You can solder onto your PDB to get the voltage sensor wire hooked up and get that onto your on-screen display from the camera if you happen to use the on-screen display from the camera. I actually am not going to be using that because I use a Betaflight OSD, so you'll see that instead. But I'll go ahead and I'll show you the OSD and all the settings, the stock settings from this camera as it comes out of the box. Okay, so I got the camera powered on and transmitting to my monitor here. You can see these are the standard settings. You got your pilot name here on the left on the bottom, voltage in the center bottom, and your power on time, and the right, you can obviously turn those things off. So we can go into settings here, and if we go under, I think it's special settings. Yeah, here you can change the video scale. So you can go from 4:3 to 16:9. You can turn off the pilot name, the voltage, the timer, and then right here you can see it says under image style there's something called sunset, sunny, cloudy, indoor. So these are the different basically presets here. And since I was flying in sunny conditions, I changed this to sunny. The default out of the box was sunset. So if you don't change anything, that's what you're going to get. But I changed. I think this is the only thing I changed, other than turning off the OSD. I changed this to sunny. Otherwise, I left all the rest of the settings alone. And then let me just show you what the difference is in terms of the aspect ratio. So you're going to have to kind of pay attention to the background here. There's a bookcase back there, and you can see I'll put the bottom of the camera onto this is the top of the desk here, and then that's the top of the image. Here is the ceiling fan, and then on the left here is a little door. So there's a bookshelf here and a door there. So this is the 4:3. This is going to be giving you the widest field of view, and I believe it just cuts off the top and the bottom. Switching to 16:9. I'll go ahead and switch that, and then the camera reboots when you do that. And you can see now that the image actually I shifted down. It looks like now I see more of the desk, not much of the ceiling fan. So let me readjust this. And so the monitor here is I think it's a 16:9 monitor, so that's why it's not, you're not seeing a 4:3 image here. So under 16:9, the width is the same, but the height looks like it's been shrunken down just a little bit. Basically, it looks like it just cut off the top and the bottom of the image, so your overall field of view is going to be narrowed a little bit. In terms of horizontal, it's same as before, it's just that your vertical is going to be a little bit less. I'm going to switch that back to default 4:3, and then the camera will reboot. And you can see also that I turned off all the OSD elements, so they're gone now. We'll look at the rest of the settings. So there's basic stuff here, automatic, I think AE is automatic exposure, and these are the stock settings here. Wide dynamic range is turned on. Under advanced, you have shutter control, gain control, all those are automatic. And under white balance, ATW is the default. Day night, EXT is the default. So I'm leaving all these as defaults for the flight demo, as I always do for all the reviews. You can see for all these image settings here, contrast, sharpness, color gain, all set to auto except for digital noise reduction are set to 0. So obviously you can change all of these. I'm going to leave all these alone. And then under here, video settings, here you can change NTSC to PAL and back and forth here. And then you can change your language, and I think that's pretty much it for all the settings that you can change. So let me go ahead and let me give you a weight measurement of the camera, and then I'll show you the flight demo. Okay, so this is the weight of the camera. It's coming in at 12.9 grams, and then if you use the full-size adapter, coming in at 14.7 grams.